Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Cat in the Box, the quantum trick-taking games from Bezier Games. Cat in the Box, a quantum trick-taking game, which doesn't sound like the usual thing you'd kind of expect, but it does actually work out. And the cat, I assume, is the nature of Schrodinger's cat, because you don't really know what it is until, well, you don't know if the cat's alive or dead until it's too late, which is an apt description of what Cat in the Box is. You see, Cat in the Box is a trick-taking game that may not be that much of a surprise to, well, the concept of a trick-taking game is not that interesting or different. It's how Cat in the Box implements trick-taking because of the fact there are all these cards, and you may notice that these cards are all black, which is interesting because there are colors at play, and there clearly are some colors going on, and what are the tricks if not colors or suits or whatever, but so how do you actually play this game? And the idea is you decide what this card is when you play it. This card is a 2. It could be a red 2, it could be a blue 2, it could be a green 2 or a yellow 2, but which 2 it is up to you. And the way you're playing this game is you're going to be deciding as you go by locking down the cards on the table. Reality does exist. We are confined to reality, but we define reality as we go, which leads to a very interesting puzzle in this game. You see, during the course of the game, you sit there and you say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and lead the trick, and I'm going to go ahead and lead the trick, and I'm going to lead it with a 4. But I'm going to lead it with a green 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down, and I'm going to say this is a green 4. That green 4 is now marked. It's marked with my piece, my token. Nobody else can play a green 4 because the green 4 has been claimed. Reality has been defined by me playing the cards. Other players go ahead and look at their hands, and we say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and follow at that suit because you do have to follow suit where possible. So we're going to play a green 1. Now the other player is going to go with a tricky option. This player over here is going to go with a tricky option over here. They're going to say, you know what? I don't have any green. And so I'm going to go ahead and lead with the trump suit. You can only break suit if you don't have that suit. This is classic to many trick-taking games, so you can only break from green if there is no green. The way you do that is you basically say, look at me, I have no more green. I am defining reality as I go by saying I am out of green, and I'm going to play a red 3, which is going to go ahead and win that trick. The red 3 has been claimed, the green 1 has been claimed, and the green 4 have all been claimed, but blue over here has won with a red 3. They've won with the trump suit. That is how a hand is played in Cat in the Box. You are creating reality as you go. You're going to list cards as you go, and slowly but surely cards are going to be depleted from the available options on the table. Right now it's set up for a 3-player game. We have more options if we wanted to have, well, more players on the table. There are more options, but over here right now with that 3-player game, and so we have these are the cards available at the table. These are the cards that will all be played as you go through your tricks. We go to the next round. Blue this time is leading. Blue's going to have their hand of cards. Now that red has been broken, they can go ahead and play red. Red otherwise could not start us off. But you know what? Maybe they go with a 2 red. They might force people into some interesting plays. Maybe, I don't know. That seems a little too risky. You know what? Blue is going to go ahead and go, you know what? They are going to go with the 2 red, and I'll show you why. So they're going to go ahead with the 2 red, and they're going to play a 2 red down on the table, and let's go ahead and grab their cards. They've won their suit. They're going to play the 2 red, and they're going to mark that down that they've played a 2 red. This player over here in the center is going to look at their hand. They have to either say they're out of red, which would be very, very dangerous, but they don't have any 6s, which means they're at risk of this player beating them with a 6. They don't only options. They're going to go ahead and play a 5 red. They're going to go ahead and try to see what can happen over there. Maybe they win it, maybe they don't. But this player over here with their much larger hand, because of the nature of me just trying to teach the game, they're going to go ahead and they could play that red 6, or they can go ahead and play a red 1. They're going to go ahead and claim it. They have a 4. They do have a 4. They're going to go ahead and claim the trick with a red 6, marking it down. They've officially won that trick. They will go ahead and grab the cards. They'll lead the next trick, and they'll lead the next trick with a red 4, knowing full well that nobody can beat that because nothing can beat a red 4 because the other cards are taken. You're going to go through this back and forth trying to win tricks, defining reality as you go, occasionally saying you're out of a color, which you then have to respect going forward. The whole reason blue marked this color as gone is now they're showing the table, I'm out of green. I could never play a green. As you slowly deplete other colors from your board, you're slowly going to run out of options on the table and a fewer availabilities, which may trigger a paradox. But before we get to paradoxes, one last thing, which is the players are going to be bidding on how many tricks they think they're going to win. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be dealt 10 cards, and from those 10 cards, you're going to discard one, and then you're going to announce to the other table in player order how many tricks you think you're going to win between 1, 3, and 4. That's for a 3-player game or a 2-player game. It's different on the other side for a 4-player game. But you go ahead and mark, do you think you're winning 1, 3, or 4, and you lock that down. The relevance of that is at the end of the game, you're going to get a point for every trick you won. But if you correctly predicted the amount of tricks that you were going to win, if you correctly get that, if you say I'm winning 3 or 4, and you win 3 or 4, then you're also going to look at your largest connected chain of resources on this table over here. Maybe you have this little situation on the table over here where you've played these cards over here, and if you said you're winning 2 tricks and you won 2 tricks, then you're going to look at your largest connected chain. Let's ignore that one. And you're going to see, look at that. I get an extra bonus 6 points for my largest connected chain, which could be a huge chunk of extra points if you were able to properly plan your hand around where you think cards will go, knowing that other players may take spots from you, but you can try to predict around how that plays out, scoring points for both every trick you won, but as well as bonus points if you correctly scored the right amount of predicted tricks than you get for the grid as well. Playing the grid is equally as important as playing the tricks. You're playing to win, but you're also playing to know how many to is the right number to win, and you're playing the grid at the same time, and you're trying to make all your predictions based around that. But one last thing. There are paradoxes in the game. Sometimes the game comes around and you've sat there and you've told the table, I'm out of all the colors except for red. The only color I have left is red, and it comes to your turn and all you have is a 2 and a 5, and the problem is there are 2s left. There's no 5s left, they're all out, but there are 2s in play, so you can play a 2. But you've told the table that you're out of those colors and you have to respect the reality that you created, which means you have now created a paradox and you are out of the round. You're going to go ahead and discard your hand of cards. You're going to go ahead and say a paradox has been created. The round immediately ends. It's over. And you will lose points for every trick you've won so far, effectively penalizing you. And the more you've won, the more points you'll lose for that round. You're going to play an equal number of rounds to the number of players in the game so that everyone has an opportunity to be start player once. And that is Cat in the Box. Define reality as you play. Create the situations that you'll walk into. Try to avoid paradoxes. Try to accurately predict what you'll win, how many you'll win, and try to create a grid of tokens on the table so you can walk away with a chunk of extra bonus points. Which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. The game is really easy to teach, really easy to go through. Rulebook's pretty short, and considering that it's going into quantum mechanics and all that stuff, it's really not that complicated. The general idea is you're defining reality as you go. Fairly easy to dive into the general rule set of the game. As far as playtime will vary based on the player count because the more players you have, the more rounds you're playing, but generally you're looking around 30 minutes or less for a game of Cat in the Box. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with the bizarre nature of the void that is created here is absolutely brilliant. Before we even get into how much I like the game, which I do like the game, whoever came up with this concept, whoever sat there and came up, this is a reprint from Bezier Games, this is the Deluxe Edition, they had an original, I believe, Japanese edition, I'm not searching over here, but the game designers, I'm not going to probably pronounce the name, I'm sorry, but the game designer is absolutely brilliant. The person who sat there and said, I'm going to create a game where the colors don't matter and you can create reality as you go, it's brilliant. And then they merged that with this whole aspect of the table that you're playing on, where it's not just an issue of defining reality as you go, but you are incentivized to create a certain type of reality, as well as winning or losing a certain number of tricks to all get this point. I mean, you can walk away. A good game of Cat in the Box, a good round, might have you winning 4, maybe if you're really lucky, 5 tricks. But you can score twice that much if you manage to win fewer tricks, but time it around the actual table and your positioning of extra pieces. You can walk away with a 10-point round, which can be absolutely huge in this game because someone's walking away with -2 points, another player's walking away with 3 points. A 10-point round can win you the whole game before everything is up, and you can have that happen. And so you have this reality that you're creating. And it allows for some really clever play opportunities, both for predicting how you're going to win, what you're going to discard, making the predictions, trying to follow through on those predictions, reading the other players, trying to time when you run out of a card, because unlike other trick-taking games, you decide when you're out of a color. You're not limited to the hand you're dealt. You're limited to the hand you're dealt and the creativity of what you think you can do with a handful of black cards, and it works really well, allowing you to score, to be clever, to give you opportunities as you figure out how to optimize and play the players and play the game in a game that lasts a fairly short time, half an hour or less, but gives you a lot of clever play opportunities in that half hour. As far as what I don't like, there's 2 things. One more of an issue to me than the other. The smaller issue is the fact that I don't love the fact that sometimes a mid-round paradox can cause you to lose what you otherwise carefully planned around. What I mean by that is sometimes you sit there and you look at your hand and you're like, I'm pretty sure I can win 3 tricks. And you know you can win 3 tricks, and you can win 3 tricks, and you're doing beautifully. But somebody eventually hits that paradox a round or 2 earlier than they normally would. You see, you can't create a paradox when you have an option to play a card. But sometimes players who are playing a little inefficiently or just have the bad luck of the draw, they might go into a paradox in the 3rd last round of the game, when paradoxes usually, if they happen in the last or 2nd last round. And that means you may have planned a perfect hand. You may have been doing exactly all the things you should do, but another player playing worse than they could have or should have can ultimately penalize your perfect planning. I don't love that aspect. It's not a big deal. I don't love that aspect. The thing that's more of a concern for me, and it's not a concern that has come to fruition yet, but it's a concern I definitely have around Cat in the Box, is the nature of the fact that you are being dealt a hand of empty cards. The cards are of whatever, but they have certain numbers attached to them, but the color of the cards is something you determine as you go. It does mean that I worry, again, hasn't happened yet, but I worry that Cat in the Box might feel a bit sameier than other clever trick-taking games after 15 plays or whatever it is. At the end of the day, because of the fact that you're not being dealt when you play a different trick-taking game, you're being dealt a hand of cards, of numbers, of suits, and you kind of have to make everything work with that. A Cat in the Box, by the nature of every card being black, leads to far more interesting strategic play out of the box, pun semi-intended, but it does mean that it's a little bit more samey game to game because you only have the differential of the numbers and then of course the players at the table and the interactions they have. Again, it's more of a mindfulness of a potential concern. This is the kind of game where I absolutely adore it. We'll come back to that later, but I absolutely adore this. Definitely one of my favorite trick-taking games, but also one that I worry may not have the same staying power as other favorite trick-taking games I have in the collection. As far as I can see, others not liking, two issues there. The first is being burned on paradoxes. Not the same complaint I have. I have a complaint that I might be burned on your inefficient play, but you might not like paradoxes to begin with. At the end of the day, paradoxes can happen, and I might feel unlucky, and I might feel like you couldn't have avoided it. Generally, I feel good play can avoid it. You know the distribution of cards at the table. You know what people have. I feel good play can avoid them. But at the end of the day, you may not like the fact that you did get a paradox, and you scored -2 points, and somebody else scored 7 points, and now you feel like you're out of it in turn 1. Secondly, the point scoring in the game, the whole aspect where you can actually get a lot more points in the game through clever manipulation of this board, might lead players feeling frustrated that they just won 4 tricks and they only got 4 points, and you go on ahead and you won 1 trick, which you correctly planned around, but you score an extra bonus 6 points because of the way you played your tokens. Players may not like that. I personally love it. I love the fact that good play can actually overcompensate for a differential of an actual hand being good or bad, so I like that a lot, but you may not. As far as final thoughts on Cat in the Box, I really like this one a lot. I made that clear a few times throughout the video, but I really, really enjoy this game. I didn't really talk about it, but I believe it's a 3 to 5 player, 2 to 5 player game. There's a 2-player mode as well. But overall, I really enjoyed this experience as far as just the sheer brilliance of the game design is off the top already just something to be really impressed by. But it really leads to fascinating decisions as you try to figure out what do I have, don't I have, what reality can I make up and define around me as I play. The main concern I have, like I said already, is that longevity aspect. I don't know how this holds up 10 more plays down the road. For me, I have other, well, let's go to the recommendations shortly, but there are other trick-taking games, there are other trick-taking games I really love and adore, and they have continued to hold up play after play after play, and I do need more time with Cat in the Box to know if this is one that's still here a year from now, or whether the interesting and brilliant game design, as interesting and brilliant as it is, does it limit itself because of the fact that you're just being dealt a hand of black cards? I don't know. Overall, a 4 out of 5 for me. Really, really enjoy this one. Very, very solid. I can see it even going up. If this game continues to climb as opposed to sinking a bit, I could see that going up, but for right now, a 4 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, my 2 other favorite trick-taking games are going to be Ghosts of Christmas, which is absolutely brilliant as well. Arguably, I like The Crew a drop more, so not The Crew. Arguably, I like Cat in the Box a drop more, but Ghosts of Christmas certainly has more longevity, at least so far. And then, speaking of The Crew, the other recommendation is going to be The Crew, a trick-taking game which gives you, there's 2 options, The Crew Deep Sea and The Crew the something Planet 9. There's a space crew and an underwater crew. I recommend The Crew Deep Sea as being a slightly better version of the game, but both are absolutely fantastic, giving you cooperative trick-taking with a lot of fun puzzles to figure out and a ton of variability to keep the game interesting. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.